Michael Szell, who's our next speaker. Michael is professor at Central European University and research fellow at the Hungarian Academy of Science. The goal of his research is to quantitatively understand collective behavior and the underlying patterns of our interlinked actions and decisions. His special focus is on urban and online environments and media. He is particularly known for his work on multiplex networks and social dynamics of the players of his massive multi-layer online game Pardus. Please welcome Michael Szell.
Please, thank you very much. So I chose a bit a provocative title, Make Cities Great Again. But this is about how we use complexity science to understand complexity in cities, to actually try to avoid complexity when it comes to urban planning. So in urban planning, we want to embrace simplicity, and this is what I want to talk about here. So urban transportation, as a part of this complex system of cities, faces huge problems. We have millions of people dying every year due to pollution and fatalities on the road. And when we try to ask rigorously how efficient is urban transport, how much potential is there to make it better, we don't really know. So this is one nice research question in complexity science that we asked. And there are many things happening right now that add a lot of complexity to urban transportation, mostly through companies, for example. So we have vehicle sharing, which is great because we have less cars on the road. Or we have companies that design algorithms to make existing services better, adding more complexity. And maybe we also have this kind of self-driving cars soon, which add another layer of complexity. And our own research wants to understand all the new things. So in this case, we looked at a very old thing, which is the taxi system. And we tried to understand what happens if there is a new kind of procedure that combines trips that happen in the system, so where people share rides in the system. Okay, and we did this research applying our tools of complex networks science, and eventually we found that if you share trips in this taxi system, then this works very great. You can share basically 90% of the trips. And this was a very nice result at first. But then when you think about long-term consequences of these kind of new systems, new sharing systems, then you realize that adding this kind of new complexity into this system can cause problems on the long term. So if you make shared or self-driving cars more attractive, then cities might invest less in public infrastructure because they see, okay, everyone is using an Uber, why do I need a bus? And we have increasing evidence that this is becoming the case for now in American cities, that mayors say, this is the future, so we don't need public infrastructure. So if you have this kind of short-term benefits, maybe there will be long-term unintended consequences that we have to be aware of. So more cars on the road would mean then more problems. And we should not just add technology blindly to a system, but really we have to understand the long-term impact. So we should not fall into the trap that adding technology is always the best thing, so that new is better than old, popular better than good, online better than offline, math better than people. Of course, don't get me wrong, we all love mathematics. It's the language that we use to describe nature, to describe society, so that's what we need. But the end goal has to be for the benefit of the people, of course, especially in urban planning. So just one example, if we make vehicles interconnected so that they avoid each other, it sounds like a great plan, but at the same time you add huge tail risks to the system because you inflate the attack surface. So if there is an attacker who wants to bring down the system, maybe the damage that this attack can do is not just limited to one vehicle or to 10 vehicles, but to maybe the whole city, and it would impact millions of people. And in complex systems, we know all that simple answers are very rare. And here is maybe a very unique situation where there's an exception, where we know that there is a simple geometric problem, where we know that cars take away a lot of space, so you have all these classical images. So maybe we should get rid of cars in cities. And of course, don't get me wrong again, we don't want to go back thousands of years to get back to the Dark Ages, but we have to think what have the last decades added to cities, and maybe there were too many things that were added, or things that made cities worse. So we want cities that work, we want cities that feel good, that are there for people. And we have proven forms of mobility, like public infrastructure, so why change a winning team? But of course, adding complexity in small doses should be perfectly okay, so making a bus self-driving will not harm anyone. Okay, so to conclude, how to make cities great, again. So try to identify where there is too much complexity, and maybe there are some simple answers. And if you add complexity, do it in small doses. So self-driving buses, bike-sharing systems, all look great. But okay, if we have these solutions, then why are we not there yet? And this is actually the big question. So in this case, we know the solution to the problems. We know that having less cars in cities brings economic benefits, and more cities are going this way. But of course, the real issue in the system are social and political dynamics. And this is the unique opportunity of complexity science, to see cities and to see evolutionary processes as networks co-evolving. So the social and political dynamics co-evolving with technological evolution. And I think complexity science is the best candidate to tackle these issues. Okay, thank you.